So, dear Prince, warm welcome here in the European Parliament. It's a big honor for us to have you here in the European Parliament. At this event, well, we are focusing on the situation in Ethiopia, in your country, and we had already a short, well, exchange of views about the Amhara people and this difficult situation of your people. So we got already kind of a picture of the situation, and we are really happy that you are with us today. And I would like, well, to give you the opportunity to share your views with us and to tell us what the situation is, and maybe also the question, what can Europe do for you? I think that's maybe one of the most crucial questions today. Thanks a lot. Thank
you. Your Excellency, Mr. Ruissen, my dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, please accept my heartfelt apologies for being so late, but the entire south of Germany is completely gone, you could say. There's nothing moving. I had to change trains 4 times, and actually it is a big miracle that I'm here today, and I'm extremely grateful. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you that you gave me this opportunity to address this august forum and to give you a small briefing on the silent suffering of the Amhara people in Ethiopia. Ladies and gentlemen, Ethiopia faces unprecedented crises, political, social, economic, spiritual, psychological, environmental, and geopolitical. These pose an existential threat to this ancient country that hosts the African Union and several multilateral organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, I often ask, what is the role of a government? Ethiopia's crises are institutional and structural. I had always thought the primary role of any government is to defend human and national security and to promote the common good. This is not the case in Ethiopia. Everything is managed through an ethnic elite lens. This is why Ethiopia is one of the most conflict and corruption-ridden countries in the whole wide world. Unfortunately, this fact is underreported and underappreciated. So you may ask, why should the world care? My answer to that, because this multifaceted crisis has far-reaching implications, not only for Ethiopia, the second most populous country in Africa, but also for peace and stability in the Horn of Africa, Eastern Africa, and the Middle East. What are the root causes of this Ethiopian crisis? Ethiopia's human rights crisis stems deeply rooted political, ethnic, and governance challenges. This has been compounded by cycles of ethnic conflict, government and non-government-led wars, rebel insurgencies, impunity, and non-accountability for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and crimes of genocide. Ethiopia's national institutions, civil society, independent press, and multi-party competition are completely degraded. People fear their government. The one-party state is brutal and merciless. It worries me that the fabric of commonalities such as shared humanity and nationality that bind Ethiopians are now torn apart. Ladies and gentlemen, ask then why Ethiopia holds an election during a civil war. Ethiopia needs peace, human security, and stability first. This is why there is popular outrage within and outside the country. Those past months, Ethiopians have been holding peaceful protests in European, Northern American, Australian cities, and in South Africa, urging for the release of political prisoners, the cessation of wars, respect for human rights, and the rule of law. Ethiopians within the country are completely barred from holding peaceful demonstrations. Last April, one of the most celebrated artists in Ethiopia, Tewodros Kasahun, nicknamed Teddy Afro, released a set of inspiring songs conveying powerful messages shared with more than 70 million listeners across the globe. He zeroed in on gross human rights violations, displacement of millions, decimation of national identity and institutions, and iconic symbols. His song, Ethyoreka, ranked second on Billboard Global 2026. Government security reaction to this artist informs government insanity. Authorities entered and pillaged Teddy's establishment and jailed his managers. The avalanche of personal attack against him is chilling. At stake is freedom. This is an artist who calls for national reconciliation, brotherhood, peace, and stability. This is an artist who rejects distinctions based on tribe, faith, and social status. His urgent plea to restore sanity in Ethiopian politics is akin to the red alerts issued by the Lemkin Institute Against Genocide, Human Rights Watch, Genocide Watch, and protests across the globe. In early May, His Holiness Abuna Matthias, Patriarch of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, the largest faith in the country, said to Ethiopia's leaders, "Do not be ruthless to God's people." He reminded them, "We have been crying for too long." At stake is religious freedom. I commend Genocide Watch for its timely April 2026 country report on Ethiopia. Two crises caught my attention: geopolitical and domestic. Fears of war between Ethiopia and Eritrea are on the rise, currently surrounding the contested issue of access to the Red Sea. Leaders have since traded hostile rhetoric over coastal access. The latest explosive border conflict with Sudan is also very concerning. Domestically, danger looms throughout Ethiopia, with residents in Addis Ababa in constant fear of being displaced, arrested, abducted, or killed. This is a continuation of the state emergency declared in August 2023. Genocide Watch reports in the Amhara region in 2024, regional forces arrested thousands of people in a campaign of mass arbitrary detentions targeting the individual Amharas, while hundreds were released in 2025, thousands remain, and we do not know what their fate will be. 4,678 schools have been damaged or destroyed. Only 21% of children in the Amhara region attend school. The Center for International Policy Studies, CIPS, Ottawa, said in January 2025, concluded that the targeting of schools and educators in the Amhara region shows a pattern of targeted human atrocity, typically associated with war crimes, crimes against humanity, and crime of genocide. This state action compounds extrajudicial killings, state and non-state enforced disappearances, and mass detention of ethnic Amhara individuals. In my estimation, ladies and gentlemen, this is a form of genocide. Who is accountable for this alarming development? A non-governmental institution, human rights advocacy in the United States with field experts in Ethiopia reports that between October 2025 and March 2026, the federal government of Ethiopia conducted 39,728 casualties against the Amhara region by using attacks by planes and drones. These drone strikes caused, as I said, 39,728 casualties, 14,445 killed, and the rest injured. Drone strikes in February 2026 alone caused 1,656 casualties, the majority were killed. 1,789 girls and women were raped by governmental forces. 3,482 people were abducted. 14,900 people were arrested and jailed. The level of ethnically targeted attack on Amhara civilians and the destruction of social and economic infrastructure demonstrate culpability on the part of the government of Ethiopia. More baffling is, there is no sign that the government of Ethiopia is willing to stop gross human rights violations, including mass arrests, drone strikes that kill innocent civilians, mass evictions and displacements, unless the international community speaks up and at long last acts. The international community must recognize the notion that the Ethiopian government actions are deliberate. Ladies and gentlemen, for 8 consecutive years, a coordinated and systematic campaign of terror has been waged against the Orthodox Christian communities in some parts of Ethiopia, especially in the Oromia region. The atrocities are not random. They are not spontaneous. They are deliberate, repetitive, and carried out with the direct enablement and coordination of the federal government in Addis Ababa. The documented record of crimes against Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church and its faithful includes scores of Orthodox churches burned to the ground across Oromia, including ancient sanctuaries of irreplaceable historical, spiritual, and manuscript heritage spanning hundreds of centuries of Ethiopian civilization. Hundreds of priests, monks, deacons, nuns, and Christian worshippers was massacred, with recent reports confirming the systematic slaughter of hundreds of Christians in the RC region alone. Their deaths unacknowledged by their government. Crucifixes torn from the necks of Orthodox Christians, including children, by regime-backed extremists. acts of religious motivated hatred captured on video and widely circulated, yet met with impunity. Systematic destruction of Christian communities whose identities are predominantly Amhara, but also include Tigrinya, Gurage, Oromo Christians, and other ethnic groups, constituting crimes against multiple peoples simultaneously. Tens of thousands have been forcibly displaced. The forced removal of the canonical leadership of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church by the Abiy Ahmed government, replaced by regime-appointed cadres and radical extremists, rendering the church institutionally decapitated and incapable of defending its own faithful. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed bears direct, personal, and inescapable responsibility for those crimes. His government does not merely fail to protect Orthodox Christians, it actively coordinates, enables, and shields the perpetrators. Despite irrefutable video evidence, documented massacres, repeated pastoral appeals by church leaders, and sustained international alerts, Abiy Ahmed has taken no meaningful action against a single perpetrator. This impunity, ladies and gentlemen, is not negligence. It is deliberate policy. His forcible interference in the internal governance of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, installing loyalist bishops, dismantling the church's canonical autonomy, and placing its leadership under extremist control, is a calculated act of institutional sabotage. Its purpose is to neutralize the church as a pillar of Ethiopian civilization, identity, and resistance. This is not governance. It is persecution by state machinery. This conduct mirrors the methods of totalitarian regimes throughout history that have sought to destroy a people by first destroying their faith, their clergy, and their sacred institutions. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church was founded in the 1st century AD, making it one of humanity's oldest continuously functioning Christian institutions, predating, I might say, the Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox traditions. It has preserved the Book of Enoch, the complete Book of Jubilees, and countless manuscripts of global, religious, and historical significance that exist nowhere else on earth. Ethiopia's Orthodox Christian civilization, its rock-hewn churches, its illuminated manuscripts, its monasteries, its Tabot tradition, its unbroken apostolic heritage represents a living thread of faith and culture spanning 2,000 years. That thread is being deliberately, violently, and systematically cut. The destruction of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church is not merely an Ethiopian tragedy. It is a crime against the heritage of all humanity. The world ignored the destruction of the Timbuktu manuscripts. It must not ignore this shameful act. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me now to address several international organizations, including, of course, the European Parliament on this matter. First of all, the United Nations Human Rights Council to open an immediate, independent investigation into the persecution of Orthodox Christians in Ethiopia's Oromia region, with particular attention to the Arsi massacres, the burning of churches, and the forced displacement of clergy and believers. Second, the United States Congress and administration to invoke the International Religious Freedom Act, IRFA, and formally designate Ethiopia as a country of particular concern, CPC, for systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations of religious freedom. The European Parliament and the European Union to impose targeted sanctions on individuals within the Abiy Ahmed government who have enabled, coordinated, and shielded perpetrators of violence against Orthodox Christian communities. Fourth, the African Union to cease its institutional silence and acknowledge that a member state is committing crimes against its own religious minorities, crimes that, if perpetrated in any other region of the world, would have triggered immediate and decisive international response. Fifth, the international criminal justice bodies to begin the systematic documentation of evidence for the prosecution of those responsible for crimes against humanity, including Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali and his senior security and political officials who have commanded, condoned, or facilitated these atrocities. And lastly, global media and civil society to break the wall of silence surrounding these massacres, provide sustained coverage, and amplify the voices of hundreds of thousands of Ethiopian Orthodox Christians living in terror in their own homeland. Let me conclude, ladies and gentlemen. History would judge those who were silent. The international community stood by during the Rwandan genocide, the Yazidi genocide, the Srebrenica massacre, and subsequently expressed remorse. Remorse without prevention is not justice. It must not repeat that failure in Ethiopia. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church has survived Aksumite empires, medieval invasions, colonial pressures, and Marxist persecution for 2,000 years. It must not be extinguished in the 21st century under the watch of a world that has both the knowledge and the power to act. We demand justice, ladies and gentlemen. We demand accountability. We demand action now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your briefing, what you shared with us, and especially listening to the different figures. It's really shocking. That's what is happening in your country, the crisis in your country, and the persecution you informed us about. So thanks for your very good briefing, and also for very concrete recommendations to the different international organizations. And I see here our responsibility for us here in the European Parliament and in the EU. You mentioned the possibility of, you mentioned the sanction regime. That is a possibility we can use in the EU in order to sanction specific persons who are responsible for what is happening. So thanks for that. I would like to give open the floor for some Q&As. I think we have to realize that we have reserved the room until 5, or do we have more room? More? Do you know what?
Yeah, I'm afraid there's an event, another conference right after this one at 5.
Okay, yeah, so it's right.
So,
Let's be brief.
yeah, it will be brief indeed.
Maybe give the floor for a question. Yeah.
Thank you very much for presenting situation in Ethiopia. It's really worrying. I have a very simple question. So you listed quite clearly what do you expect from European Union and other international players. But I would like to understand why the government forces are attacking Ethiopians, their own people. So at least there must be some kind of a pretext, some kind of a context where they are at least publicly saying, so we attacked with drones, with airplanes, these villages because of what? Because they are claiming that there are some kind of a terrorist, that there are something else. At least there must be some kind of a official pretext for these attacks. That's what I would like to know to understand better.
Gentlemen, you must understand the evil, the root of all evil in Ethiopia is the Ethiopian constitution. Ethiopia is the only country in the world that calls itself an ethnic federation. No other country in the world, yesterday and today, has ever called itself that, with exception of one country, South Africa, under the regime of apartheid. Believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, for 30 dreadful years, Ethiopia has got apartheid. The Ethiopian system is an apartheid system, filled with hate. Why do I say that? 1948, when the Boers came to power in South Africa and started with the word apartheid, there was a BBC journalist who asked the Prime Minister, Mr. Milan, who was regarded as the father of apartheid, I have done my best, but I can't still understand the meaning of this word. And I'm now quoting Prime Minister Milan, who answered, apartheid is nothing more than an ethnic federation. Ladies and gentlemen, that is exactly the system we have in Ethiopia. A system full of hatred, of neglect, of absolute damaging historical uselessness by forcefully distorting historical realities and facts, and to be able, by using the word divide and rule, to rule over 120 different ethnic groups, not to consider them as one nation. For what we need in Ethiopia, like all multiracial and multi-ethnic societies in Africa, is true federalism. An institution that we may call oneness in absolute freedom, oneness where the individual rights are really taken care of, unity in diversity. That is what we need, not only in Ethiopia, but in all other African countries. And until we have gone, until we have got rid of this Ethiopian constitution, I assure you, nothing much will change. They will go ahead with this racial discrimination of the highest degree.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we have already decided to conclude our meeting because I saw that also for the people for the next meeting are coming. But Dear Excellency, Prince, I would like to thank you for coming to us and for your very, very, very clear message. And you give us also, well, let's say, clear recommendations, as I said. And we have to think about also internally what we have to think about a kind of a follow-up, at least, to see about how can we help you. You mentioned the system of sanctions. European Parliament, we have also the instrument of urgency debates. So we can also think about that to try to put it on the agenda on the plenary session. Are urging for let's say a political statement of European Parliament that can, I think, also be helpful because diplomatic and political pressure on the government of Ethiopia from the international organization like the EU can be helpful, I think. So there's some ideas, but let's see, elaborate a little bit more about possibilities there may be. But for the time being, I see it also responsibility for us. I would like to say, we're talking about the silent suffering. That's a responsibility for us to give a voice to people like you, like your people in Ethiopia, the Amhara people who are suffering. It's a responsibility for us to give them a voice. So let's see how we can make that more concrete in the near future.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Thanks again for coming. Thanks for also participants for coming to this event. And let's keep in touch.
Thank you very much.